Carolina gives up a season-high 97 points, an anomaly or a sign of bigger issues yet to come?
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up? It's Monday, January 5th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch to get this Monday and your week going the right way. Special shout out to our everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Oh boy, coming up on the show today, Carolina falls on the road at SMU 97-83. The defense was the big issue. Was this a sign of bigger issues or just a one-off anomaly on a Saturday in early January? We will have the Schade stat of the game. We'll have the Four Corners recap, including a slow day for the front court by their standards. And Carolina picks up a new quarterback commit in the transfer portal and maybe another upcoming. Interesting stuff behind the scenes there. Let's get right into it. The biggest issue from Saturday, Carolina, by the way, falls to 22nd in the net, 3-2 in quad one. The St. Bonaventure game has moved to a quad 3. So now Carolina is 0-0 in quad 2, 4-0 in quad 3, and 6-0 in quad 4. Simply put, the defense must be better going forward, or the ACC is going to be rough and Carolina is going to struggle mightily. As you look at Carolina's two losses so far this season, Michigan State on Thanksgiving Day and SMU on Saturday, the biggest issue in both of those matchups was a guard who was able to take over and dominate a basketball game. The assumption until Saturday had been that the issue with Jeremy Fears and what he did for Michigan State is that there was no Seth Trimble in the lineup for Carolina. Well, guess who was in the lineup for Carolina this Saturday? Seth Trimble. One of the, from my vantage point, part of the problem Saturday, and we'll get more into this in the second segment with our Four Corners recap, is that because the other guards were not as effective, Seth was having to do too much on both sides of the floor. And there's some other things with how Carolina chose to play defense we'll look at as well. And so, in my opinion, Seth, because of what he had to do as a two-way player and because of Carolina's switching defense, he was not therefore able to have as big as an impact as I would have liked him to have been able to have on Boopie Miller and holding him in check, both as a scorer and as a playmaker. And that's a problem for Carolina. So we talked about I had some conversations with our insiders this weekend. Austin Hunt and Taft Flowers and I were talking about it. And both of these guys were mentioning it as well. These switching issues that Carolina showed. It makes sense that in a game like this, Carolina is not going to switch 1 through 5. We saw that with McCray from Florida State, where a couple times Veesaar got switched onto him and it was bad business. And so you notice Carolina essentially just switching 1 through 4 in this game. But one of the things to now wonder about is, what if in moments like this where there's a Boopie Miller going off, and it got to imagine that's not going to happen much more this season where Carolina faces somebody going that bonkers. There's a possibility, or there's at least the thought of, what if we switched just 2 through 4 in those moments? Do not switch off of Boopie Miller. Let Seth stay with him, or whoever the lead is. You know, if Seth's out, maybe it's Stevenson. You put some length on him. Maybe you give Caleb Wilson a turn, but stick with that and don't switch off. Obviously, the staff has a different philosophy than that, or they would have gone with that. They would have said, hey, look, we're going box and 1 or whatever it is, and we're just going to leave Seth on Boopie, and we'll switch 2 through 4. So I guess that wouldn't be box and 1, but you get my point, like triangle and 2 in that scenario. That's a possibility, but that was an issue. Carolina's got to figure out, okay, if there is a guard that's taking over the game for the other team, how do we stop that? How do we slow it down? How do we do something different to throw stuff at him? That said, though, sometimes you just got to say, you know what, Boopie Miller, tip of the cap, sir. I got a cap over here. Tip of the cap, sir. You did very well. And some days the ball's just going in and you just shake his hand and you say, congrats, you won. Was it one of those days or was it a bigger issue? When you look at SMU's points per possession for the game, they were 1.426. That's not great. But in the second half, it was absurd. 1.706. And you may or may not remember this or be aware of this with this advanced stat. With points per possession, you're doing good if you get to 1.0. That's basically the demarcation line. If you can hold a team under 1 point per possession, that's a win. If you offensively get above 1 point per possession, that's a win. And then any 10th above 1.0 is a big jump. So 1.4 is a crazy day at the office. But 1.7, I mean, my goodness, SMU was on one. This is the third season I've been charting points per possession. In that stretch, that is by far, that 1.426 for the game, the biggest number Carolina has given up for a game. There's been a couple other 1.4s, but nothing at 1.426, closer to 1.43 if you round up. Sherelle McMillan from Inside Carolina noted that if you're using KenPom efficiency rating numbers, this was Carolina's second worst defensive performance of the KenPom era, which is now in its 29th season. I mean, my goodness, it goes back all the way to the last year, of the Dean Smith era, 96-97. That's what we're talking. That's what level of historic performance this was, to the good for SMU and to the bad for Carolina. So all of that said, and giving all the other numbers we've seen so far this season, given the fact that coming into this game, I was saying this will be the best offense Carolina has faced thus far and might be the best, if not second or third best Carolina will face all season, at least until the postseason. And so for now, I asked the question off the top, anomaly or sign of worse things to come? For now, I'm going to classify this as an anomaly because all the other data points suggest that to be true. There have been some signs here and there of some vulnerabilities for Carolina defensively, but now they've been exposed. Now they've been realized. And now Carolina as a team, sometimes you hate that it takes it, but sometimes it takes one of these kinds of losses of like, oh man, an opposing offense could really go off on us. Yeah, they could. But again, what if you're a professor? I'm a professor. What do you do when you're looking at an aggregate, a whole sample set of numbers? You throw out the highest and the lowest as anomalies, and you look at everything in between, and it's like, okay, that's what this team really is. So for now, that is the wisest scientific thing to do. And you know I'm a numbers nerd, right? So that's what makes sense. But I get that a lot of people are going to get scared and sad and, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We might get to that point, but I am not there yet. Stay with me. We'll see what happens. And, usually we'll go to the shady stat of the game later in the show in a game recap. But today it falls in line with all of these numbers. So I'm throwing on the shades right now for the shady stat of the game. And it is SMU's second half offense. Are you ready for this? The Mustangs had just 6 possessions in the second half in which they took a shot and didn't ultimately score. 6. Now, obviously, I'm throwing out possessions where they had a turnover, and I think they only had 4 turnovers. So even that wasn't that bad. Let me find my way back to that. Second home team, second half box, turnovers 4. So yeah, just 4 possessions that ended with a turnover. But the shady stat is of the possessions where they took a shot, only 6 of them ended with SMU not scoring in some way. And here's what I mean. There were 20 of 28 from the field, meaning there were 8 total misses, but 2 of those 8, they got an offensive rebound and then ultimately scored on that possession. So 6 is the shady stat of the game, because just 6 possessions in the second half, SMU took a shot and didn't ultimately score because Carolina got the rebound. And I guess if we threw in those 4 turnovers, 10 possessions in the second half where SMU didn't score. That's it. My word. If that's not a shady stat of the game to tell you just how wild the second half was for SMU, I don't know what is. Well, it was a slow day at the office for Henri, Veesaar, and Caleb Wilson by their standards at least, and that means it was a slow day at the office for Carolina. I'll explain what I mean, plus the rest of the Four Corners recap coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, Fridays already feel different during the basketball season, and FanDuel is making them now even better because every Friday night before NBA games tip off, FanDuel gives fans just like you a chance to kick off the weekend with what they're calling NBA Happy Hour. It's your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before all the Friday night action gets going. Bonuses, boosts, other surprises coming your way from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time every Friday. And now that's going to be appointment viewing for you with the NBA Happy Hour. Plus, the timing is perfect. It's right before the games, right before the weekend starts, and it adds extra energy to your Friday night without having to overthink it. Here's an opportunity, by the way, without having to overthink it. With Carolina's loss at SMU, the value for Carolina as ACC regular season champion has now gotten even better. They have the 6th best odds to win the ACC regular season at FanDuel, and the number is plus 2,200. If you are one that thinks the Tar Heels are going to rebound and ultimately win the regular season, boy, big opportunity right there for you. So before tip-off on Friday nights, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook network of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day, and thanks for making Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network. And if you're a true diehard Tar Heels fan, you got to know about the brand new Everydayer Club. There's 2 tiers of it. The higher tier is called the All Access tier. You get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Check it out at lockedontarheels.supercast.com. You can find that link in the show notes as well. Four Corners recap. Here we go. It was not a typical front court day for Carolina. It was funny. I had put in my show notes, is the front court going to front court? They did not front court. But it's funny because you look at the numbers for Veesaar and Wilson, and a lot of players would be like, wow, that was a good game for me. For Caleb Wilson, 13 points, 6 of 11 shooting, over 50%, 1 of 2 at the free throw line, 7 boards, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, and 2 steals. Again, for a lot of people, 13 and 7, you're like, you know what? I did pretty well today. Henri Veesaar, 14 points, 4 of 11 shooting, one of his least efficient games. In fact, that might be by field goal percentage his worst game of the season, and that's saying something. 2 of 4 from 3, so he continues to knock them down from outside. 2 of 2 at the free throw, 4 of 4 at the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block, and two turnovers as well. Again, a fine line. Henri Veesaar, 4 of 11, 14 points, 6 rebounds. If you add points and rebounds, both those dudes had 20, and together they had 40. We've been looking for them to collectively points and rebounds get to like the mid 50s. That's about what they've been averaging. And so they were shy of that. But the problem that this exposes, and this is point number 1 in the Four Corners recap, is that Carolina is going to struggle to win when Veesaar and Wilson have off nights by their standards. You look at this and you say that should be good enough numbers, but more guys have to rise to the occasion. A couple others did. We'll talk about them in a second, but not enough Tar Heels did to match that. It's not fair to expect epic performance out of both of them game in and game out. You expect them to be good, and they were good in this game, but they were not elite level. Now, part of that is, guess what? SMU is allowed to play defense too. They doubled both players, as many teams have, but Carolina couldn't or didn't take advantage of it at the same level they have in other times. And part of this is when you look at it, yes, they each took 11 field goals, but you would have liked more. One of the issues is when you look at the 3-point numbers, SMU coaxed Carolina into shooting more threes than we would like them to take. Granted, Carolina had their 4th best 3-point field goal percentage of the season, but it didn't matter. It's still too many. You need to continue to, and I don't hit me with the analytics of, yeah, but the 3 is worth more. I get it. I know that. But what I'm saying is when you're Carolina, you got to continue to know where your bread is buttered, and you got to find ways to, even if they're not the ones getting the shots, work inside out so that guys are getting better shots. That's what Carolina has to be able to do, especially when teams are so committed to double teaming, because this Tar Heels team is so good at moving the basketball. 21 assists on 29 field goals in this game, for crying out loud. Got to lean into that even more. That said, great shooting night from Carolina from 3, but I thought SMU limited the effectiveness of Carolina's 2 most effective players in this game. Unfortunately, Caleb Wilson's 20-point game streak is over. It ends at 6. And that's that. But hey, what does that mean? Let's restart it. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Let's get after it. But what we see here, again, when Wilson and Veesaar aren't elite, Carolina's going to struggle to win. Other guys got to step up. Four Corners recap point number 2. 2 guys who did step up in this game: Jarin Stevenson, who had his best game as a Tar Heel, in my opinion, and Seth Trimble, who had his 2nd straight 20-point game. We'll get to that in a second. But for Jarin, 16 points, 5 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 3 of 4 at the free throw line, and 4 rebounds. That's his most points scored as a Tar Heel. Efficient from the field, at the free throw line, from 3. Still is not shooting well from 3 overall, but it's an encouraging sign. And if Jarin is going, how many times have we said it in the first 14 games of the season? If Jarin Stevenson could just hit a couple threes, boy, that puts Carolina in a different place, because he gets the looks, and there's so many other things that he does well to affect winning. And so if this could be, look, if you have to take a loss to launch Jarin Stevenson Tar Heel go, so be it, because I would love to have this. Affected the game in a multitude of ways. My question coming out of it for Jarin, though, is this. Is what we saw from Jarin Stevenson Saturday, is that his ceiling, or is there even more? Could he be a guy that, I don't know if I would say regularly, but gets 20 points every 3 or 4 games? Could he be a guy that, as Carolina has struggled to make threes, could make 2 or 3 a game? That might be too much, but average 2 made threes a game. After Carolina shot so well in this one, where did their 3-point percentage get to? Let's look at that really quick here together. Carolina's 3-point percentage goes up to 33.6. They're in the top 200 now. Just want to keep sneaking up and sneaking up and sneaking up. The problem, of course, free throw percentage is still so bad. 68.5% as a team. That's 283rd in the nation. That's in the bottom 100 in all of Division I. Not good enough. So Jarin Stevenson, way to go, man. Way to keep plugging away and trusting the process. And on a day when Veesaar had a good bit of foul trouble, and of course Jarin himself did, but Jarin was great stepping in, and we've been needing to see that. Could you get some production from your backup 5? There you go. You needed it, and you got it. Way to go, Jarin. Number 3 in the Four Corners recap. Carolina has to figure out what's going on from a lead guard standpoint. Heck, even Adam Lucas talked about this in his post-game. I can't remember if it was in his rapid reactions one or his longer. I think it was the rapid reactions one. But he said, quote, "The Heels are still sorting through who will run the team offensively in decisive stretches. Seth Trimble had the ball in his hands for most of the second half and finished with 5 assists and 0 turnovers, but it's a lot to ask him to run the team and also provide the primary backcourt defense," as I was talking about earlier. Primary backcourt offense, excuse me. Trimble and Luka Bogavac did the majority of the distributing, etc. So, look, and Adam, he is going to find things to talk about, but he will talk about positively, but he is honest in his assessments. And I think we all need to be there, right? That it wasn't enough from Kyan Evans. And I'm somebody that is of the mind that Kyan Evans can do it for Carolina, but he's not showing that right now. Derek Dixon is being thrust into more of a role this season than he probably should have been, and even maybe a different type of role. And that's not that he's not capable or not ready. It's just no one expected that to be the case this season. Really need Kyan to step up and take this thing. And until such time, others are going to have to find ways to do it, but that doesn't put Carolina in their best capability as a team. That said, Seth led the team in this game, 22 points, second straight 20-point game, 5 assists and 0 turnovers. Yes, you'll take that, but he shouldn't be having to do that. That's my bigger point. He can, but that saps some of that defensive energy, as we talked about earlier. That saps some of his transition game. You saw it late in the game. Seth was toast, man, because he had been exerting so much. And thank goodness that he's willing to, right? Some guys will be like, screw it, I'm done. But man, and Luka Bogavac too, great playmaking on Saturday, 6 assists, 1 turnover for him. And that you would like to see at a pretty consistent basis. And that's really encouraging. So Seth has been doing great things since he came back. Just keep scoring and doing it. But man, he needs other guys in the backcourt to step up and do it along with him. For example, we're talking about Boopie Miller. What if Boopie Miller was Carolina's lead guard? Because he's somebody that's not just a scoring guard. He's going to do that, but also dropping 12 dimes. Can you imagine if you had that level-headedness, dishing to guys on the perimeter, dishing to Veesaar and Wilson? And yes, that would bring in size stuff because he's 6 foot, nothing, but man, my goodness. So anyway, just think about those kind of things. Fourth in the Four Corners recap. Here's a silver lining. We got to have one, right? Despite all of this that we've been talking about and the struggles and issues, North Carolina could have won this basketball game. Right? Like, think about how defeated and dejected this feels. It's like, oh my gosh, it was terrible and things went wrong and blah. Sure, I hear all of that. But the Tar Heels absolutely could have won this game in Dallas. They were down 4 with 8:25 to go. Seth Trimble at the free throw line missed it, and Carolina never got closer. But had Carolina had a guard that was able to get the ball more to Caleb Wilson. Also, was Caleb Wilson sick? His mom seemed to indicate that he was on Twitter. I couldn't tell if she meant that he was actually sick or sick over the result of the game. A little unclear. But still, that's a possibility with all of this. And yes, it was a final 14-point deficit. And you look at that and say, okay, well, you lost by 14. You lost by double digits to Michigan State. But in both of those, well, let's just stay with this one in particular. It's kind of game script that led it to be, right? Carolina's just chucking some shots at the end, trying to force some threes up to get their way back in it. I would suggest that from a scoreboard standpoint, it wasn't as bad as the final score suggests it was. You might disagree, and that's great, but that's not where I'm at. And so with the wisdom of a night's sleep, plus more of a Sunday, I'm not as sky is falling as maybe a lot of people are, or maybe as even I was Saturday in the post game. Now I am, hey, there's stuff you got to work on and you got a week to figure that out before Wake Forest. I am there. You can't just keep doing what you're doing and everything's going to work. There's a lot to be figured out, but here's where I'm encouraged. Hubert Davis recognizes that as well, obviously. And he talked about it post game, like, yeah, there's stuff we got to work on, got to figure out. I'm curious. There will be the ACC coaches media availability today, Monday. Curious to hear what Coach Davis has to say, what his kind of state of mind is. With that, obviously, it's just a 10-minute slot, so not much room for a ton, but it'll be interesting to see where he's at with it. Okay, let's switch to football because the portal opened over the weekend, and Carolina gets a brand new quarterback commit. But there might be another, and he's visiting campus today. I'll explain it all coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, you guys, there's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, all of it, man. That energy is so great. Some great quarterfinals in the college football playoff in the middle of last week, and we get more of that coming up in just a couple days with the semifinals. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But getting tickets, that used to be the difficult part because the lines were so long. You had prices jumping up on you at checkout, all of that kind of stuff. And that's where Game Time app comes in. They're the app Game Time is that gives the advantage back to the fan, the easiest way to unlock amazing college football and basketball tickets in just a few taps. I was looking ahead to tickets for next Saturday when Carolina hosts Wake Forest. That's our next game. The prices have already started to go down, which Game Time says they do as you get closer to tip-off, and that's true. I've been tracking it. It's down to 109 for getting in the door. Who knows? Maybe it gets into double digits as the week goes on. I love the Game Time app, how incredibly easy it is to use. You can go from browsing to buying in just a few minutes. They've got the zone deals option, where instead of picking your exact seat, you pick the section you want to sit in. You let Game Time pick the seat for you, and you save even more money when you do it that way. It's a really cool thing. You should check it out. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball and football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. The transfer portal opened over the weekend on January 2nd on Friday, and it will stay open through January 16th. So you got 2 weeks in there. Over the weekend, Carolina got a couple of commits, including Billy Edwards, a quarterback from Wisconsin, who's jumped around a couple times, that came to campus Friday as the portal opened, committed while he was there. But one of the things we learned Sunday evening-ish is that Carolina might not be done with the quarterback room, because former Texas A&M quarterback Miles O'Neill is still planning to visit campus today. Let me break down both of these guys for you, but I'm very intrigued for what all of this could mean for Carolina's quarterback room. Billy Edwards visited over the weekend. He had initially transferred from Maryland to Wisconsin. Was supposed to be their starter coming into this year, but similar to Max Johnson, got hurt in their first game. His was a knee, and so hasn't really played. In fact, I reached out to Locked On Wisconsin, Locked On Badgers host Ryan Herrings, and same kind of thing. He's like, honestly, Isaac, it's tough for me to really say. He said, quote, he missed the whole year essentially with injuries. I think he probably could have come back near the end of the season, but to me, there was no point. He seemed to be a good leader, but I have no clue about the on-field play because he was just never there. So not even much we can get from what he did this year, because it was just like 30-something snaps he had. So started his career at Wake, 1 year there, 3 years at Maryland, was supposed to play at Wisconsin this year. Obviously, that didn't work out, so he's got 1 year of eligibility. As Maryland starter in 2024, that we can go off of, 65% completion rate, 2881 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You'd like to see that grow, but all right, there you go. And interestingly, here's a connection, apparently trained with Bren Renner last summer because they're from kind of the same area. Now, here's the interesting wrinkle. Miles O'Neill, a former Texas A&M quarterback, was prepared. He's visiting 2 schools. I think it was Stanford was the other one, and then Carolina today, and is still planning to do it as of Sunday night. And here's what's interesting to me. He's coming from Texas A&M, is going to have 3 years of eligibility. He committed to Texas A&M under Bobby Petrino. And, you know, there's all this like, but well, Petrino hasn't officially been announced yet. Well, here's another clear indication of what's about to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello, blinking lights. It just all makes sense. So I texted a source who's very in on Texas A&M stuff, very knowledgeable with everything with their whole athletics department. And this source said to me, quote, this is very short, but Miles is a big old kid that can sling it. Bobby Petrino, again, hello. I assumed he would jump in the portal, and I would assume he would land somewhere in the Power 4 conferences and have success. So we'll see what happens there. But, man, it makes the QB room very interesting. Obviously, and unfortunately, Bryce Baker is gone, portaling. Max Johnson is portaling, trying to get another year of eligibility there. Gio Lopez obviously has already announced he's coming back. Torrey Newkirk is returning. He had, some limited snaps this year. And then Travis Burgess, highly rated freshman, will be coming in. He is coming off injury, so there's that. I can't remember the timeline for him to be ready to play. But really interesting stuff to watch this offseason in the quarterback room. I'm curious to see what comes out of that, but I'm excited for the competition of it, right? Let's find somebody and then let's land on him and use him. And hello, all 3 of these guys, or 4 with Newkirk, well, I guess 5 with Burgess, are in before spring, and you hope that means good things for the Tar Heel. Well, 5 if O'Neal comes. I guess I should say we don't know that he's going to. So we'll see what happens there. A couple other transfer commits, at least as of the time of me recording this. There might be more that come in later Sunday night. But offensive lineman Andrew Threat coming over from Charleston Southern, and wide receiver Jonathan Bibbs from Louisiana Monroe. So we'll keep our eyes on more and more there. Obviously, a lot of pieces to add as a bunch of dudes are in the portal. Massive incoming class coming in this spring semester as early enrollees, which is great ahead of spring stuff. So, man, I do not know what to expect from the Tar Heels this football season. Going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Quick weekend whip around, and then we'll get out of here. Not much going on. Women's basketball played Thursday after we recorded Friday's show. They won 71-55 against Cal. But then, unfortunately, on Sunday afternoon, lost to Stanford in overtime, 77-71. That is painful. You hate dropping any game, but a home game in ACC play to a team that had come all the way across the country. It's just like, dang it. So hopefully the guys can make it up when they travel out there here in about a week or so's time. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Wrestling was at the Soldier Salute Saturday and Sunday, and they finished as things were wrapping up. It was bouncing back and forth, but second place to Mizzou, unless anything changed here at the last minute. Let me double check it one more time before we carry on. Day 2 recap. Let's see how it ended when all was said and done. Yes. Mizzou won. Carolina was up by half a point on Mizzou, and then Mizzou got a couple more points in the end. So Mizzou wins this event. And then swimming or diving, I guess specifically, had a tri-meet this weekend with Miami and Notre Dame. Good stuff there. Spring sports, winter sports are going to start to pick back up here as the semester gets rolling again. And then we'll have a lot of more great stuff to talk about. Baseball and softball are going to be here before we know it. Lacrosse will be here before we know it. Tennis, golf. Oh, man, I can't wait. I love the spring sports schedule. It should be electric. I want to thank you guys for being here with me on a Monday to get things rolling. Again, this is a non-game week. Carolina doesn't play again until Saturday, so we'll have a lot of space to have some conversations this week. Probably Coach Rob will be with us. We'll need to get some other guests on as well to have just some, all right, what are you seeing kind of conversations. And so that'll be a lot of fun. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to the show, video and audio, do it now so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you haven't joined the brand new Everydayers Club, again, that link's in the show notes, as is the link for the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. We'd love for you to come hang out with that great community of Tar Heel fans. It's a great place to be. We're chatting every day. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Yes, even after a loss, it is a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow on Tuesday, but until then, peace.